Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another DC Worlds Collide video. This is Mr. Squirrel, as always. Glad to have you here. So, I wanted to talk and rank all the best dps'ers in the game. You're going to look at this list and you're going to probably say, okay, there's some hot takes here. Again, I had to actually pre-fill the list out before I even started. And I want to talk through my rationale behind these decisions. I was originally going to move these characters before, but I needed to spend a lot of time. I spent probably close to like an hour just sitting here and like moving characters around, where I think they go, why I think they go here. Now, I'm going to foreground a few things on this list. First, this list is based on DPS, damage per second, and how much damage a character can do in different scenarios. Not just in PvP, not just in PvE, but all across the game. Their versatility as a character in doing damage, not tanking. So if they're more like a tanky or utility role, they're not going to be rated as highly, because I'm looking at flat out damage. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm not accounting for their utility in this. It's just some characters do struggle more with doing damage. Also, same thing with survivability. I do think survivability is an important role for a DPSer. Now, why am I rating survivability a little bit higher than I'm rating utility? Very simply, if your DPS is dead, they don't do damage. So if they don't have any survivability techniques in their kit, they are not going to be one of the better DPSers. So if you have like a glass cannon, then you're going to run into some issues. And so what I'm going to do today is, rather than talk about each character, guys, I think there's what, 3, 7, 10, 17, 21. There's like 25 characters here. If I'm going to sit here and talk through each and every single character, I'm going to more talk about D, C, B, A, and S and why characters are there, versus just talking about every character, because it will be such a pain to deal with that. This video will be like 2.5 hours long. I'm not going to go through that. I'm just going to talk about the categories and briefly touch on a few characters that I think are important to talk about. And the next thing, I know this list is subjective. People are going to disagree with me like there's no tomorrow, and that's okay. This is probably one of the most subjective lists I think I'm going to make, and I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with people saying I'm dumb and stupid and, stop creating content. You're dumb. You are all welcome to your opinions. I look forward to people arguing with me. I am going to explain my rationale for some of the more key characters here, and then agree or disagree with me. That's, again, I love the chatter. I love when I see GC is dumb, Lesty's stupid. Some of the comments really get me. And the positives and the negatives. I love you guys. Okay, so let's get started. Let's start with D. Okay, so you'll see I have Bloodsport, Dr. Phosphorus, Robin, and then Star Sapphire Carol. I'm going to talk about Bloodsport a little bit because I think he's a good representative of this team. He is an interesting character in that his ult sucks to a certain extent. It's not bad. It's good on manual play, sucks on auto play, because it's usually just wasted. If you can time out an ult perfectly, like let's just say right when Wonder Woman's going to go and you have a faster character, you can actually proc this right before Wonder Woman ults, and her ult does jack diddly. But at the same time, he doesn't do a lot. He's good on a block team, the old school block team, because he never really needed to ult. So he's one of you just put him as the 5th ulter, and then he just, he has a really good advanced attack, though. I'll say that. But again, his value comes in from his ability to block, because he has a higher block chance, which means that he has a higher probability to block, triggering more healing and more attack up when he's on the block team. Other than that, though, he's just kind of there. He's kind of just a there character. The same thing kind of goes for the rest of these characters. Like Star Sapphire Carol, she does okay damage. Okay. She has a nice stun, but she's not doing that much. I'm sorry for people that are like, oh, how could you rank her so low? Blah, 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 blah. She's good-ish. She kind of just gets, but here's the thing about her. She doesn't have any defense. So she can get murked quick. I like her stun, but her ult, I don't really like. It can do damage, but it needs to build up. So it's kind of weird to place it in an ult order. It's just, she is a very eh. And then like same thing with Dr. Phosphorus. You need to ult with him a lot. You need to build up his burn. He takes a long time to build up. Also, I've heard he's glitched. Right now he's bugged out, so he's not doing everything he needs to do. Yada yada yada. Overall D tier. Like they're just not doing a lot. Sorry. They're not doing a lot of damage per second. They're just not helping your team do more damage. That's why they're in D tier. C tier, these characters are doing more, but they themselves are not the best DPS'ers. So for instance, let's look at like Green Arrow. Actually, you know who is a great example here? It's going to be, I'm going to use Vigilante. I actually really like Vigilante. I like the character. I like the card. He was my favorite character in Peacemaker season. So this kind of hurts my soul a little bit. Vigilante is my favorite character out of the whole Peacemaker. Love the character. But in terms of the game, I know this is going to sound, people are going to argue at this point, but Batman just does what he does, but better. Sorry. I just think Batman's better in every way, shape, or form. I think but Vigilante is good. I think he's doing a lot in terms of like extending, fragile armor break. But like, here's the thing about extending armor break. You have to get a lot of armor break up quickly before he does his advanced attack. Otherwise, it doesn't do a lot. So it's very conditional. Same thing with Mera. Mera by herself without Aquaman is just meh. Now, I will say with Aquaman and Constantine, she can build up really fast and then she becomes kind of a nightmare single target DPS. But she's very conditional based on these other characters. And alone, she's just okay. She's okay. And you need to invest a lot into her. And even with that investment, I look at other characters. I'm like, if I put the same investment that I put into Mera that I put into Cheshire, I'd be getting so much more out of a Cheshire than I would out of a Mera. Mera can be very good. And I say this is why this list is so hard to make, because you put her in the right setup, she can skyrocket up a little bit. But then again, she's not the one doing all of that stuff. It's actually the other team around her, and she is just kind of being carried along that. She's one of the weaker characters on the sacrifice team. But because of Aquaman's utility, she becomes amazing. This is what I'm saying. Like, for instance, Green Arrow. He can do some decent work, but he needs Zatanna and Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman for the crit damage increase and Zatanna for the crit increase. So he can crit. But even then in PvP, this man will literally help a block team versus hurt it. His ult doesn't hurt like a block team. So I also want to mention that I am kind of putting both PvE and PvP together. I'm averaging their ratings together. That'll make sense in a little bit why I'm doing that. Otherwise, it's yeah. Now, so that's the rationale behind this. I will say this: Starfire is also a very good character, but again, she's not doing crazy amounts of things. She's giving energy though, but she herself is more of there to help, but she herself is not doing the most. That's my point. Again, are people going to argue with me on this? 100%. And that's okay. Let's move on to B. Okay. Let's talk about the character. There's two characters. There's one character I want to start this conversation off with, and that's Kyle. So I had to sit down with this one because I actually originally had Kyle much higher. Now, here's the issue. My Kyle is 11 stars, badge 30, very invested. He has like 1.5 million power. My Kyle is hyper invested. My Kyle is the same investment as my Hal Jordan. Actually, he's more invested now because he's higher stars. But he does nowhere near what Hal Jordan is doing. This is why I say he needs a buff. His kit is good. His numbers and stats are not. And that creates a problem. This is a similar problem. Well, it's not a similar problem, but he can be good. He needs lots of investment, but here's the kicker. I would honestly put that in Deathstroke, and you're going to get so much more out of that investment than if you put it into Kyle. Put it into Cheshire, get way more out of it. Put it into Sinestro, get way more out of it. But for him, you're not going to get the same level of output, which is sad. I think he is the new hotness, and yet he is he is just straight B tier. He is not moving out of that unless they do some buffs to him. I'm sorry, unless they make like a single target crazy nuke buffer thing. I don't know. I don't see him going anywhere else. It's just because he doesn't. One of my bigger issues with him too is that in his ult, If you get the frantic stacks, then he loses the durability of the block. Why would he lose? He becomes less tanky. Why not just keep that? And then he's just kind of like a very tanky character that can survive for a while. And when he ults, he becomes a tanking, damaging monster. I like that idea. I think he should have keep the block, but he doesn't. He just becomes a glass tank at that point versus a bruiser. That's my issue. There should never be a point where he's kind of hurting himself. Now, that's similar to, here's the other thing. Let's talk about the Flash. And I'm going to talk about Flash because I don't talk about this character a lot. Flash is good conditionally. If he's the last one to die, but you don't get to control that. And because of that, since you don't get to control that, if he's the last one on the team, he is a nightmare to deal with. That is one of the more broken abilities in the sense that but it's so conditional. If it happens, I don't like it because it turns he's either a god or he's just kind of there. Sorry, I don't think he's that great until that passive is procced. If it's not procced, he's not doing much. Jessica Cruz. Let's talk about Jessica and Guy. They are good characters, but they're not the ones carrying the team. On a Green Lantern team, it's Hal. They're there to buff Hal, make Hal do more. And they're not outright buffing him. They're just because they're Green Lanterns. They can work on that team, on the Mr. T team, and hopefully we get a Green Lantern synergy at some point. And maybe they will change. If that happens, they could change. But the thing with Jess is her single target kind of sucks because her ult is, AoE. The thing that I really don't like about Guy is that he starts with his advanced attack, which means he actually takes time to build up, and you want him to be doing his auto first, not his advanced. Because, the advanced does work really well in league battles because then he's just like throwing the baseball all over the place and he's doing tons of stuff. But the thing is they're very conditional, and they are good but conditional. Same thing with most of the characters on this B tier. They're good but very, very, very conditional in specific circumstances and situations and all these things. They're not teams that you could base around the team. This is where A and S become very different. These are characters you can actually build your team around. Now, I'm going to talk about three characters here because I think these will summarize why I'm here. They're here. And I want to talk about Wonder Woman. People have always been like, you underrate her, blah, 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 blah. And I probably do. But here's the thing, is that once you get into the chapter 50s, y'all, she doesn't do enough damage because it's not the ads anymore that are going to be the problem. It's going to be the main characters, like the boss character that you have to worry about. They deal tons of damage and they need to be killed. And you can actually stall out if you're not killing them. I've stalled out before, even with very tanky, very, very damp DPS heavy teams. I have stalled out on some bosses because if they're healing too much, they're not doing you can't do damage. In PvP, she's SSSS tier. She's like crazy tiered PvP. I'd say she's still one of the best PvP characters in the game. So I'm averaging them. I actually think in PvE she's B. In PvP she's SSSS. She is. I actually think probably one of still the best characters in PvP. No questions asked. I think she's actually probably the best PvP based character. Because she's got a 1-2 combo. Lasso to silence and then jump. And it's like lasso and then ult. Ooh. Her lasso with then her first ult auto critting with her artifact. That's a 1-2 combo that many teams just cannot handle. I will be honest with you. You've probably seen a ton of runs where she'll outright murk my teams. And that's because she's crazy bonkers. But in PvE, when the boss has way more HP than she can handle, then she's not doing as much. I mean, granted, is the silence really nice, but she's not throwing the silence at the boss. She's throwing it at one of the tanks, which isn't going to do a lot. So in PvE, she loses a lot of her luster later into the game. She's also not good in other scenarios. She's not a diverse character. She's good in PvP and later in the game. In PvP, bonkers. I'm not going to take that away from her. She's SSS tier. Everywhere else, Now, let's talk about Deathstroke. I get a lot of people asking me about Deathstroke. And there was a big... And I never talked about this when I saw it pop up between Cheshire and Deathstroke. I really want to talk about these two characters, and then we'll talk about Superman. Actually, let's talk about that second. We'll talk about Deathstroke as a transition into S tier. Let's talk about Superman real quick, and then I'll transition to Deathstroke. Superman is a single target god in the sense that his ult does so much, especially now that they fixed it. However, He's got two main things, and that's all his damage. He is very tanky, which means he will be able to do damage for a long time, but his ult's on a 3-turn cooldown, and his basic is only really good against tanks. His basic is actually not really good against the Mr. T team. It doesn't do the extra damage. And it's his basic and then yes, I know his advance can do another basic. Yes, I get it. And it does dampen. Yes, I get it. But he's really only a basic ult character. Everything else about his kit is about sustainability. So he himself is not the best damage dealer per se. He's very good at killing someone really quickly, and then you have to wait a while. But he's very tanky. That's my issue. He's not. You want someone else on the team doing damage besides him, is my point, not just him. Right? Same thing with Wonder Woman. You want someone else on the team doing damage besides her, not just her. Now, if we talk about Deathstroke, he is an interesting one because I still think has the makings of an S tier character, but he got replaced. And I got a lot of video comments saying, well, how come he's getting moved down just because Cheshire exists? And here's the thing, guys. The reason I want to talk about this is because if you have two characters and one is better than the other, then in situations where I only have 5 characters to use and holds the same color, fits the same role, because she is a villain, she is agile, she is a DPS character assassin, but she does all the same damage. She does damage, bleed, and poison, and she has the Cheshire poison, 3 debuffs. And this is why where my hesitation with Deathstroke has always been. He has no defensive capabilities. If he gets outright, he can get outright murked very quickly, and then I just lost the main damage dealer to my team, and that creates a massive problem. I've had him outright, and he, unfortunately, especially in PvP, he is weak to one of the best PvP characters, Wonder Woman. He can get outright murked by her. Maybe a lucky block saves him, but the moral of the story is he just gets outright murked. On the other hand, Cheshire has some tools that might help her. If she goes invulnerable before Wonder Woman ults, that does nothing. She is just a better version of him. And why it pushes him down is because in situations where I can use him or her, I'm always going to use her. She's also an epic. She's easier to get. I really wish that, because and unfortunately for Deathstroke, one of his passives only really takes effect when there's few characters. Like in team ups, it's great, but outside of that, you have to whittle the whole team down before it'll take an effect, right? Because it only works with 2 characters up at a time. Meanwhile, Cheshire is doing everything right from the get-go. And I know people are going to say, well, that's not fair to evaluate. It is fair to evaluate. If I'm going to have a team and I'm going to say I'm just going to use her in every situation where I could use him, then he loses his value. Because then what's the point of running him when I can just run her and she does everything he does, but better? I just think she's a better version of him. I'm sorry. People can argue with me as much as you want. I'm not going to budge on this one, y'all. I think she's just a better version of him. And her survivability is what makes her S tier. She is a better version of him. She is him, but she is able. Now, granted, he does the AoE. He can do the multiple bleeds and yeah. I get it. But she has so much more survivability than him. I never need to worry about her on a team, ever. She's just always pretty much, she's invulnerable half the time. And that's where I want to talk about these other 2 here in the S tier and why they're Sinestro. His ability to fear can't be underestimated. He is phenomenal. And he has a team synergy, and he works phenomenally well in PvE content. PvP, he can lose a little bit of his luster, but he's still very scary. A well-built Sinestro is frightening to deal with. And I'm not going to push that either other way. He is a frightening character to deal with. He can he can murk out your front line very quickly if he's insanely built. I've seen one just wipe through my front line. I was like, oh my God. With if you're running some fragile and him, he's not fun to deal with. And then comes what I actually think is the best DPS'er in the game. And there's a reason I hold Hal. People really, I think, undervalue Hal's ability to be versatile and good everywhere. He's good in team ups. He's good in bosses. He's good in AoE. He's good everywhere. He's good everywhere because his ult, the way it works, if there's, you just have to whittle the enemies down a little bit. You have a Jesco and then him, enemies whittled down, and then he gets more planes. Or if it's single target, he just does all of his planes on one character. And the, you and here's the thing about these two: they have utility that benefits the team. You put Hal with Mr. T, he's literally healing your team, and he can get out of stuns. That, oh guys, that's nuts. If he gets procs his advanced attack when he's stunned, he just gets out of the stun. They're very versatile characters. They work everywhere, and these are the three characters you can literally just build teams around them, and they work. They work so very well. So again, I know people are going to argue with this. I know people are going to be like, you're dumb, blah, 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 blah. I know. But this is what my thoughts are. It's completely subjective based on my own opinions, based on PvP, PvE. It's also hard to rate them because, again, some of these characters are a lot better in PvE. Some of these characters are a lot better in PvP. I'm literally trying to just combine their scores together and put a placement. We can argue with this all we want. This is what I think. Look forward to hearing the feedback. As always, remember, failing is your first attempt at learning.